Africa is losing about 50 billion US dollars per year, and that has been occurring for the last 10 or 15 years. And the paradox is, during this period, we see Africa's macroeconomic indicators improving, investment climate improving, but to our surprise, is a puzzle, you are seeing also capital flight increasing. You are seeing also Africa attracting a lot of foreign direct investment, but at the same time, we are seeing more is moving out than what is coming in. In fact, studies do show that Africa is a net creditor to the rest of the world. We are seeing growth taking place in Africa. Unfortunately, while we are saying yes, Africa is growing, we are seeing that Africa's inequality is increasing. Africa poverty indicators show that poverty is increasing. We are also seeing that Africa is not industrializing, deindustrializing. At the end of the day, we are saying Africa is the most backward region compared to other regions in the world. Well, so what does it imply? When you say now there's so much money going out, it shows clearly that if a lot of money goes out, Africa is unable to finance its development. Africa is unable to finance infrastructural services, health, education, and physical infrastructure in terms of roads and whatnot. So that means then, as policymakers, they need to put up strategies to stem capital flight, to fight money laundering, to fight illicit capital flows. But the starting point is, first of all, the awareness has to rise. They have to realize the problem is there. And once they know that the problem is there, then they start designing the kind of strategies which are necessary in order to fight that problem. But given that is a cross-border problem, then they have also, in those strategies, designed ways of cooperating with other countries in the region, as well as the other countries outside Africa, where the money flows into. These monies flow usually to the so-called secret jurisdictions or tax havens, which most of them are in America and in Europe. The resource countries suffer most through capital flight, especially those countries which have discovered oil, gas, gold, etc., etc. And if you go by a good example, you will find that Botswana is one of the countries which has been able to manage its resources well. So what we are saying here is the capital flight in countries like Nigeria, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, etc., etc., is because of the mismanagement of the resources. Okay, of course, the recovery process is not an easy process. It needs a lot of efforts, and a few countries have been able to recover resources, and these were associated with those resources which were taken away from Africa by the so-called politically expressed persons like Mobutu, like Abacha. So in the Abacha case, Nigeria was able to recover some of the resources. But despite of that one, that is only a drop in the ocean, in the sense that still Nigeria until tomorrow continue to face or to experience a lot of capital flight. So more needs to be done. But the recovery process is a lengthy, is a difficult process because of one reason. One reason is that those who benefit from these resources, which happen to be the OECD countries, America, US, and other areas where you have the tax havens, they benefit from resources because they are in their banks. They can loan that one for their developmental needs in these countries. So there is a lot of resistance to ensure that they return these assets, they return these values to Africa. The starting point is to raise the awareness. Most of the awareness has been risen by service organization and the media. So at least now, people know the problem is there and the problem is huge. That's one. The other aspect now is to cooperate with other countries in the region and outside the region to start blowing the case up, to make a point to other countries, to donors, and even to the tax haven to say no, this problem is killing us. This problem is inhibiting our development. So that something's done. In Africa, through the UNECA, they have established this high panel against illicit capital flights, which is being chaired by the former president of South Africa, Mbeki. That's a good starting point, because if you want to recover the assets, we have to own the process, and owning the process is to become proactive. You have to be on the driver's seat by trying to say that you want to own the process, so that you drive the process, because at the end of the day, we are the ones, if the money is returned back to Africa, we are the ones to benefit most. And again, while we are doing that, we have to put our house in order. One, we have to fight corruption. Corruption fuels illicit capital flight. I used to believe that corruption is bad for investment, but I came to realize that corruption is good for investors. It's one of the conduits of illicit capital flows. The other ones, mispricing, that is, you over invoice imports, then you under invoice exports, and through that you get money out. There are other issues of smuggling. There are other channels also, even what we call health tourism, whereby you fail to improve your health infrastructure at home, so you keep on sending people outside for treatment. That also is a source of money laundering, capital flight. So we have to put our house in order. Once we put our house in order, addressing, I'm not talking about the petty corruption, I'm talking about the grand corruption. Because in the grand corruption, that's where the big monies are. And if there's grand corruption, it means then a number of projects, including infrastructure projects, cannot be realized. Therefore, we have to ensure that Africa, we have to stop corruption. But perhaps what's more important is, you find that in some cases, in a number of countries, we have the anti-money laundering infrastructure in terms of institutions. Of course, some of these institutions, they suffer from capacity. They don't have the necessary capacity. For example, the revenue collection kind of institutions, they have no capacity to trace, to audit multinational corporations. But apart from the capacity issue is the political will. Africa of late, they don't have leaders who are for the people. They don't have leaders who are visionary. They don't have leaders who are development oriented. We have leaders who are selfish, who care for their stomachs and their pockets first before they care for the citizens. So we have to ensure that even the leaders' mindset has to be changed.